Welcome. This is a walkthrough of Hybrot's multi-source news curator AI workflow. Let us take a better look. Here we have a main note describing the workflow. In short, it uses AI agents to decide the best news for your personalized needs. We have use cases, such as following research fields, and requirements like API credentials. Let's take an overview of the entire workflow. The workflow is composed of 5 main steps, plus the input. The input requires a list of arguments. An example is provided in the red note you're seeing. We use a custom node to handle the arguments. It is called Global Variables Node. It has arguments such as search themes, date time range, text sensors, criteria for quality assurance, criteria for news selection, language, translation requirements such as language and tone, emails, phone numbers, and chat IDs for messenger channels, and lists of RSS feeds for both text and video sources. All of them are configurable. The user can configure them, although we will be happy to help if you need assistance. In the screen, you can see a note explaining how to use custom credentials. This note shows how to use a code node to input custom credentials. Only useful if you intend to manage more than one use case for this workflow. We provided inside notes explaining each argument of the workflow for your reference. We also added more info below, which might prove useful to help with any doubts. It gives you the kind of values that are accepted for certain arguments, such as the senders in the last step. We only have 5 kinds of senders: WhatsApp, Telegram, webhook, save to disk, and email. This video will mainly be about showcasing the email step. For this workflow to work, we require several sub-workflows. One of them is the sub-workflow responsible for looping over each RSS feed to gather their news together. Another one is the search queries with SERP API. We use SERP API to get results for the search terms. Naturally, you need to provide your own SERP API credentials when configuring this sub-workflow. This one is responsible for getting metadata about video news, such as their title and description. There is no actual transcription of the video, only information obtained from the description. We left a note here with more useful tips about how the workflow works. A standard procedure. When dealing with AI agents, it is practically necessary to structure their inputs and outputs. Let us see another sub-workflow responsible for gathering the content of websites. This is used when the RSS feed comes from a news aggregator or when it is from search themes through SERP API. This is the initial step. Observe the Global Variables node, here called Configure Workflow Args, which is connected to 4 kinds of start triggers. You can start it from the Execute Workflow button, a schedule, an email trigger, or a webhook. We will execute it, but let us review the other steps first. The first step is news gathering. We use the configured RSS news feeds and search themes to find appropriate news. We will gather text sources and optional video sources if the workflow is configured to check them. The second part is the filtering step. It will do operations such as remove duplicates, filter by date time, and remove news according to the text sensors. The third part is the news selection step. It has an optional quality assurance step. We recommend doing it, especially if you're gathering news from many sources. Both quality assurance and news selection will decide the best news through the titles and criteria defined by the user. The fourth step is the news summarizer. After the top 10 news items are selected, the news summarizer will get their content and summarize it. Maybe you're wondering why we don't combine the third and fourth steps. It is simple: context limitations, and we're replicating how humans often decide their preferred news. Moving on. The fifth step is the sender preparation step. It will just prep the data for the different channels it might be configured to be sent. Also, it will translate language and tone if this was configured by the user in the arguments. An important result will be the email body. We put a red note with an example of how the HTML of the email body will look. Finally, the final step will be reached. It is the step where the results are sent to the configured channels. As of this version, we only support the 5 channels previously mentioned as options in the credentials for the Global Variables node. The Send Email node is there. It will receive the appropriate sender and recipient arguments defined in the Global Variables credentials. Note that this workflow needs the credentials for the Send Email node, as well as the LLM chat model used in the other steps. Now, let us start the workflow. The credentials for the global variables node, here called configure workflow args, are already defined for this execution test. Now it is in the Get Web Page Content to Data sub-workflow. This might take a while. We will accelerate time in this section of the video. Time acceleration. After it gets all the necessary content, the other sub-workflows will run. The sub-workflow to check each RSS feed in the list will run. This one is pretty fast, so it will end soon. Next, it will check the video feeds. We only left one video feed to speed things up. The video feed checks for new videos based on the date-time range configured. In this case, there are no new videos. Now it is entering the filtering step. With each filter, it is expected that the number of items passed to the next node will go down. We limit the number of articles to avoid going overboard. It is just to prevent a situation where a newsfeed returns far too many articles. Now comes the third step, news selection. Before we send the news titles to the actual news selector, we will do a QA. This will not only check the quality of titles, but also lower the number of news titles for the news selector to analyze. It is going to loop a few times, checking batches of items. This is to avoid going beyond the context window. We will accelerate time again. Time acceleration. After the QA substep is done, it's time to send the news titles to the news selection AI agent. The news analyzer will decide the best news out of all the news it receives. It decides the top news based on the criteria given by the user and by reading the news titles. Next comes the fourth step. The news summarization step will check the content of the top news and summarize it. This will be useful both for the receiver of the result and for making it appropriate for the configured channels, such as email. Accelerating time again. Time acceleration. After the news summarizer is done, it is time for a new step. Prepare the news for sending. This step also contains the translation step. It will check if the content requires translation. Here, we don't require a language translation, but we want a tone translation. After the translation AI agent is done changing the content to the appropriate tone, it will be time for the final step. The final step is sending the results to the configured channels. In this execution test, we only want to send them to our configured email. The Send Email node receives it and sends the results. We've reached the end of the workflow. Next, we will show you the output and the execution successfully logged in the execution history. Looking at the output, we will see it generated a general summary of the top news. We will now show you the execution panel for this execution test. As you can see, the n8n panel indicates the execution was a success. The execution we just did is loading. It will soon show up with the same steps we just saw in this video. And there you have it. The information from the test was logged in the execution history. In the case of our test, this is the final result. An email sent with the exact output we saw in this video, alongside the top 10 news decided by the news analyzer. You can find this workflow on our n8n templates page. If you're interested, you can find a link to purchase it. Or you could go directly to Hybrot's Gumroad page. This concludes the video. We will share more video content in the future, services, products, or even just our ongoing research, like the video about our latest article. You can find them on our video channel. By the way, we just launched a service to take commissions for custom n8n workflows. If you're interested, check out our Gumroad page. Thank you for watching, and we hope you found this walkthrough helpful. Have a great day.